43. Teopo staggered into Takuda's headquarters, limping from the slug gun wound and trembling as much from fatigue as from being in the presence of the great leader. She chattered a long string of chirps and clicks, but Takuda caught no more than the word Battletech, even though he was beginning to get a grasp of the Tatate language. Nothing he did would make her slow down or choose other words. By the time Dakota arrived, she was shaking with frustration as well. Dakota settled the little alien into a nest of cloaks to ward off the evening chill and soothed her with strokes and words. He continued speaking in soft tones until the little one's violent trembling had passed, and she was almost still. Only then did he begin to ask questions. At first, the inquiry brought the words out of her in a rush. Dakota held up his hands to slow the rush, but it was to no avail. She poured out all she had to say in what sounded to Dakota like a single sentence. Dakota gave up trying to control her and just listened. When at last she subsided into the cradle of cloaks, he turned to the desk commander. She is Teopo named, daughter of Pikete, a resident of Usogumo. Pikete has been passing information on movements of mercenaries and leaders of enclaves. He for the Shidosha of the Usogumo works, and Teopo works sometimes with him. For past 3 days, she to us has been trying to get important information she has. Much has changed in past week or more. Leaders of cities and mercenaries now have resolved their disagreement. The Mech people and the owners of the money now speak together. Now will come the Mechs to fight. All of the fighters of the cities, like the ones we vanquished 10 days ago, will also be involved. The little one does not understand what they plan to do, but Pikete heard some words and made her memorize. The words are hammer and anvil. Not understand does she, but her father said you would. Pikete said Max would be the hammer. As Dakota finished the translation, the curtain of the command post was thrust aside. Even before it had dropped back into place, Parker DeVood had stepped through and begun to speak. Enclave forces moving out of all the cities and coming toward us. It looks like the real deal, as last time. They're forming right across the entire front. They don't look too enthusiastic. They don't have to, said Takuda, rising from his desk. According to this very brave young lady, they aren't going to be very aggressive. The real attack will be coming from elsewhere. The flank. Probably the left flank. It's got to be the Vost mechs, with the conventional forces to pin us in place. Pass the word. Here's the plan. It wasn't a complicated one. Takuda knew that the Enclave forces were mainly supposed to pin him into place, and so would not advance too aggressively. In addition, they had been severely hurt only 10 days before, and most of them would remember that. And even if human nature had dimmed memory of the disaster, the hulks of the burned-out vehicles should help remind them. They would be cautious. It was the mechs attacking from the flank that represented the real danger. But Takuda would have his own surprise waiting. During the past 10 days, his force had grown to more than 5 times its size in the last engagement. Disgruntled soldiers and others from the Enclave saw that a victory by the forest forces would give them a chance at a better life, to rise to the top via one simple change of allegiance. Takuda's one heavy vehicle had also expanded to a full company of 12 after his people had salvaged the wreckage of the battlefield. Alone, such a force wouldn't stand against mechs, but with the Locust to back them up, they would be a force to reckon with, and the Vost mechs would not be expecting either a reverse trap or an armored force. Granted, the Armor of the Enclave vehicles was nothing but copper laminated wood, but it looked good, and that alone would give the rebels more confidence. The Arsenal team, reinforced by Davood and his mechs, as well as the heavy weapons, would hold the line against the Enclave attack. As before, they would give ground rather than become heavily engaged. The Tatate platoons, now rearmed with muskets, could provide long range fire to delay and confuse the advancing troops. The rest of Takuda's force would concentrate on the left flank, the side nearest Usagumo. It was a calculated risk, but Takuda believed that if the mechs moved to the other side, he would be able to react quickly enough. The two locusts would support the armor, making quick shots where they could. With any luck at all, they'd be able to inflict enough damage to discourage the mechs. One of the problems with the mercenary force was that it had to be victorious to justify its employment. Buyers of merc services did not take well to expensive defeats. The mercs would either win or they would die. There was no in between for the employers. And Vost knew only too well that he couldn't count on replacements. What he had is all he would have forever. That would tempt him to husband his resources, creating a conflict of objectives. The buyers wanted victory or death. The mech force wanted anything but death. It was here that Takuda saw the opportunity for victory. Panting in anticipation, the armored engines stood like great bulls at the edge of the woods. Exhaust belched from their single twin stacks to hang low among the overhanging foliage and then spread out like a great blanket. Drivers released their brakes, the armored drive wheels of their machines ripping at the ground. They laughed and pointed, making rude, obscene gestures to each other. The infantry riders and weapons operators took up the pantomime and expanded on it. They were ready. To their right and rear, they heard the snap and pop of combat. There was a brief spatter as the forces came into close contact, and then the sounds became more desultory as the forces arranged themselves. Probing, falling back, coming on, counterattack. The deadly ballet of strife. Men dead, shot through by wooden shafts, immolated in flaming coffins, dying from a single well-placed shot. However it happened, the outcome was irrevocable. Death. Then over the thin line of trees, hazy with distance and the gentle obfuscation of feathery branches, came the shiny monoliths of the battle mechs, stalking, searching giant machines with death in their arms and bodies. Slowly they came on, jerky and disjointed for all their humanoid shape and movement. Great, deadly, fragile things that measured human progress and regression. They were the future and the past. Nothing of human design could stand against them except man himself. Then they were breasting through the trees like metal towers, heads turning as their sensors reached out beyond their range of death. The men in the armored engines saw them come, cheerful in their determination to do great and glorious battle. The feeling was like waiting for the starting gun at a race. Huge wheels flailing the ground, gobbets of sod flung back and up, howling engines straining against pistons and cylinder heads. Jets of steam screeched outward to mingle in a thick mist. Like a herd of wild, intemperate beasts, the armored forces rushed at the oncoming mechs. Takuda saw them go, made one ineffectual attempt to call them back, then gave up. They were a wild, green, enthusiastic mob. He would have to bring up the locusts in support. This wasn't as he had planned. He'd have preferred to let the mercenary mechs get closer. Before revealing his surprise, he wanted them fully engaged with the armor. Now, the green troops had sprung the trap too early. He toggled the boom mic and contacted Holly Goodall. She responded at once as the two locusts began to move from their hide position in the tall trees to the rear. They came striding through the woods to support the careening armored vehicles. They were a little late, but there was still time to do some good. High above the battlefield, no one saw the single glistening reflection of sun on metal, the single flash that represented the position of the lamb. From 4 kilometers above the trees, Seagroves rolled the lamb back and forth to let the static sensors sweep the broadest possible path below. Tiny IR returns showed the movement of the heat generating targets. That was what he wanted. He rolled the lamb over into a broad split S and powered down through the intervening kilometers of space. The targeting computer centered on the first of the heat sources, the targeting crosshairs flashing red on the screen. Good read. Sensor lock. He let the lamb drift off the center line while the target hung like a fly in a spider web. As the lamb pulled up from its dive, Seagroves was forced back into the command seat. He watched the range indicator digitize the distance, watching the numbers scroll downward toward the sweet range. The target showed no evasive action. Closer, closer, closer. Green board, fire! The laser hummed in the armored right torso, the column of aligned light leaping through the carbon dioxide crystal like channeled the energy into a pencil-thin beam. The computer IR sensor blossomed into a ball. Hit. Target destroyed. Seagroves rolled the lamb over and let the search and lock system play across the field. Almost immediately the crosshairs flashed. Green board. Fire. Hit target destroyed. He rolled the lamb into a tight turn and came back across the field. The first vehicle exploded, and then the second, even before those on the ground knew the lamb was there. Takuda saw it dive, shouted a warning into the boom mic, but it was too late. The men in the charging armored vehicles did not listen, did not want to listen. They were too intent on closing with the towering mechs beyond the trees. Then it was too late. Caught in the open field, the lambs swooping down on them like some demented bird of prey. One by one, they burst into incandescent balls of fire. And still they came. Takuda wept to watch them die. He called for support from the locusts, but the medium laser in the locust's lower torso could not elevate enough to engage the swooping lamb. Then the battle mechs were inside the range of the armored vehicles. A cloud of fire enveloped the javelin as it rippled through racks of short-range missiles, hammering vehicle after vehicle into the yielding ground. No survivors. No survivors from those immense explosions that combined high explosives with flashing fuel. The locusts were in close, Jacobs with his good mech firing blindly into the melee. Holly Goodall pranced and danced, trying to draw the Panther's fire away from the vulnerable armor. Leading a charmed life, she dodged one PPC blast after another. Inside the rearward mech, Jacobs watched his displays light up with information he couldn't understand. He only knew that Goodall was out in front, drawing the Panther and the Javelin's attention away from the others. They were in retreat. The armor had had enough. Careening tanks rushed past the long legs of his locust. It was time to go. His screen blossomed with the heat signature of Goodall's mech. Hits on the outer armor were pushing the heat warning system beyond the safe range. He saw the legs freeze, saw the warning circuits fry under the hammering of the PPC. The Javelin was closing from the rear, a full dual six-pack of short-range missiles loaded and locked on target. "Run, Jacobs! Run!" came the scream over the comlink. "Run!" He watched transfixed as the red danger light blossomed on his heat scale. It was time to go, and still Goodall did not move. Could not move. There was a cloud of fire from the chest of the Javelin. Then Goodall's mech vanished in an explosion of titanic proportions. With tears streaming down his sweat-streaked face, Jacobs turned the surviving locust toward the woods and ran.